Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing something with this Mediterranean herb garden that's kind of getting a little bit out of control. Mostly the lavenders. Now I've already done something a little crazy. Um, a few days ago, we had this large blue hibiscus. It grows so fast. I had to prune it like 5 or more times a year to keep it under control. And it would constantly grow up and block this window. And we had no view except for that big green mass outside the window. So I ended up just taking it out completely. I used my chainsaw and cut it into 3 large pieces, drug it away. Of course, then there was the root ball to consider, but because we've had all this rain, it was really easy to dig out. Now, it did leave me a couple seedlings. There's one there, and an even bigger one right here. So I can go ahead and transplant those into a pot to put somewhere else. Now, typically, you would prune lavender a couple times a year. Lavender is the main beast in here. We do have some oregano. The thyme needs to be a little bit tidied up a little bit, but the lavender is huge. This is also a great time to harvest lavender. You want to harvest lavender when it's just starting to, the blooms are just starting to open up. So I'll show you that in a minute. But typically you'd prune lavender in the summer and in the spring right as it starts to green up. And that's if you live in a climate that's a little colder in the winter where the lavender kind of dies back a bit. Here in zone 9B, 10A, we have a Mediterranean climate and they don't die back at all. They just grow 365 days a year. So you can cut them back in this climate pretty much whenever you want to. And I typically do it 2 to 3 times a year, sometimes more. If I do want to keep a nice mounded shape to it, when they start bleeding into each other, I don't like that look as much. This is the look I love right here. A nice mounded gumdrop shape. This isn't lavender, this is a Santolina. It does produce yellow flowers. However, I don't like the yellow flowers. It starts to ruin the shape. So I keep it trimmed like this. And I don't worry about the flowers because I just like the silvery foliage interest that it gives to the garden. And I'm going to be putting in some more. One thing to remember when you're pruning lavender is you don't want to prune too much down into the woody parts of the plant. Now, if you keep your plant trimmed multiple times a year, it doesn't really develop a lot of wood. It's mostly this type of fresh whippy growth because it just keeps putting back after you keep cutting it back. I would say for a beginner, for most people, you don't want to take more than 1/3 to 1/2 of the plant off in height. Now we had a lot of rain this winter and the plants continued to grow and the rain kept flattening them down. So you can see the growth of this is it comes up out of the ground and then it goes flat. Now hopefully you can also see that if you follow this branch up, there's lots of new growth sprigs that are growing straight up. So you know by looking at that this is a safe place to prune, and I wouldn't go any lower than that. So right there, just cut that branch off, and now you've got some growth growing straight up that's going to grow and make this shape a lot nicer than it is right now. So I'm going to go ahead and just take care of that for the moment. You can go down fairly deep. There is some wood down here, but I do see new growth. And so just anywhere that is new, that there's new growth, you know you can cut right above that. It's a little bit easier once you've got that first level and find out where that new growth is starting. You can just kind of round the entire plant off at that same level. And I'm just looking for kind of a rounded dome. And lavender has so many uses. I mean, culinary, medicinal, just the scent alone, aromatherapy. Let me know if you grow lavender or use lavender, what your favorite use of it is. I don't tend to eat much lavender. I have had it on occasion in little cookies or tea or whatever, and I didn't particularly think it was bad. I don't know, I guess I've never just had enough recipes or whatever to use it that much in cooking, but let me know if you do and what you use it for. Another reason I'm cutting all this back right now is I have crocus in this bed. Right here's some, right here's some, back over here, I don't know if you can see that, but it's being completely covered by all these herbs, and it needs to be getting sun right now before the leaves die back so that it can produce the energy in the bulb for next year. So I need to get these out of their way so they can collect that energy before they go dormant. All right, so that's what it's going to look like when we're finished. Now, I know this seems completely sacrilegious to be cutting these down when they're blooming. And for some climates where you only get a few flushes of bloom, yeah, that wouldn't be the ideal time to do it. Like I said, for those climates that it doesn't bloom and grow year round, fall as it's going dormant, or spring once it is starting to put out new growth, that's the time to do it, not while it's blooming. But here, they grow, they bloom all year round. So there's rarely a time when there's not something you're cutting off. But the great thing about lavender is, even cutting off the blooms, you get a lot of benefit because this is harvestable. Now, this lavender here, the big one that I just did, it doesn't smell the best. I would never keep this for, you know, aromatic purposes, but it does look good. Put this in something and it will dry. You can hang them upside down, they will dry. Now, this lavender here has really good smelling flowers and leaves. Now, if you're going to harvest them for their scent or even for cooking, you want to do it at this stage here where the flowers are just starting to open. This is a little bit soon, and this one here is a little bit late. You can just come through, and you can take off the leaves as well because those smell wonderful. And you can just put these, well, you can dry them, hang them upside down in your garage, tie them together, and then once they're dry, you can just kind of crumble them up and put them into an organza bag, like a little, what's the word? Sachet, right? Sachet. And then do whatever you want with them. But for now, I'm not worried too much about that. I just want to get these in good shape. Now, these don't have much woody growth at all. None of these really do because I keep them pruned so often. So my focus on all of these is just to make sure they have a good shape, because whatever shape you leave them in right now, that's the shape they're going to expand into, just larger. Plus, I want them to look decent right now. Obviously, they don't look wonderful when you chop them back, but at least if they look tidy, you've got that going for you. So just a nice, even, rounded mound is what I'm going for. Now, on some of these bigger ones, a hedge trimmer, like an electric hedge trimmer or whatever, would be probably quicker. And once I have a lot more of these around our Mediterranean garden, I'm sure that's what I'm gonna default to. But right now, I don't know, there's something therapeutic to me about just the act of pruning this way. Although hedge trimmers can be very satisfying as well. So that's all the lavender, but some of these other herbs are getting a little bit beastly and out of control, and they're only gonna get worse. They're only gonna get bigger as the weather warms up. So this is oregano, and it can be cut back quite hard, and that's exactly what I'm gonna do, because this is way too big. So I'm gonna go way down in here, just grab a chunk, and just start cutting. Now, this I will be taking inside, and I will be drying for culinary use. Now this I can actually take right back. I can go down in here and see where I cut it back before, and I can see that there's new growth happening. It just needs the sun to be able to keep growing. So we're gonna let some sun in here. Now here's some rooted, wherever they touch the ground, they rooted. So you can actually take these, give them a little cut right there, and go ahead and plant these, and you'll have 5 new plants. Oh, there's a lot of these that have rooted in the ground. So I'm actually going to leave them for a minute because I don't have time to do all the potting up this morning. So I'm going to leave them here, and then I'm going to come back and cut them later and pot them when I have a little bit more time. Oh, I just cut the drip line. You got to be careful of that. I'll fix it. You can see these crocuses are starving for light, and they really need that light so they can come back next year and do their thing all over again. This rosemary, I'm not going to be pruning. I actually want it to get a little more height here in the back of the bed. So I'm going to leave it just as it is. Now this sage, it's starting to bloom, which I hate to disturb that. However, there's a lot of tips here that aren't starting to bloom. But the reason this needs to be cut back is look how spindly it is. It's very weak. It's fast growth because of all the rain. And I really want to keep this strong because sage has a tendency to flop. So I'm going to cut it back probably by a half, and then it'll shove more of the energy down into the bottom of the plant to put out some heftier stalks. And for some reason, this one hurts more than anything else. I don't know why. Probably because I just love this look of the green, and now it's looking like this. But I have to remember that within a month, all of these, and I will show you guys, all of these will be nice and just these lush balls of green. And the lavender might even be putting on more blooms by then. So sometimes we got to do things we don't like to get the outcome that we need and will like. I'm going to do the same to this sage right here. It's a little bit in too much shade really to do really well. And so it is spindly because of that as well. So I just want to keep it cut short. I may have to move this eventually. If it doesn't thrive this year, then I'll know that, you know, the little afternoon, or it gets a lot of hot afternoon sun, and that's probably its only saving grace. But it doesn't get any sun until probably 1 o'clock. But then it's full sun until sunset. So just pruning enough to encourage new growth at the bottom. And the last thing I'm going to cut back is this thyme. There's lemon thyme and German thyme. And it's really a spreader. So there are a lot here that I could probably pull up and plant. So what I'm going to do is just tame the edges. I'm not going to cut it down on top right now because this is a good height and it's not a fast grower in terms of height. It doesn't really get that much taller than it is right now. But there's a lot of crocus in here that, you know, are being smothered, and they need to save up that energy for next year. Now this really smells good. Man, I'm hungry. I'm really just taming the horizontal growth, keeping them in bounds. While I'm at it, I'm going to take this parsley way down. This parsley will regrow pretty quickly. All right, so the goal was to make it look tidy, not necessarily beautiful. That will come with time. So I love videos where I can actually get a whole job done in the video. Of course, the whole job isn't done. I got to clean up all of this. A lot of it's going to go to the chickens because they are herbs. Now, some people recommend feeding once you've done all this. I don't do that with my herbs. Mediterranean herbs don't need to be fed. They get plenty of whatever they need from the soil, even pretty bad soil. And so water, sun, that's really what they want. Not too much water. So I'm going to clean up. They're watered by drip. I don't have to worry about that, except I do have to fix that when I cut. Anyway, if you learned something, please give the video a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Share it with a gardening friend, and I'll see you next time.